Oranguerrilla is an animated short film made with traditional techniques but also with a great use of digital tools. This cartoon is my student film for the Master of Fine Arts in Animation and Special Effects at the Academy of Art University in San Francisco. Between the first sketches and the completion of the project, I estimated about 1,600 hours of work spread over 2.5 years. Most of those who are not in the industry don't really have an idea of how long this process is, so I think it's interesting to show the process, the tools, and the software I used. This is the trailer for Oranguerrilla. I'm afraid that the trailer is better than the actual movie. To make a cartoon like any other work of fiction, the first thing to do is to think of a concept. I consider myself first and foremost a writer, so I have a theme first and then I choose to build a subject around it. In my case, I knew I wanted to use a recurring feature in my stories, which is the damage provoked by social injustice. Themes must be embodied by the action of the characters. Here then came out the story of two kids with orange peels as helmets who take care of an orange grove until they face the antagonist, an evil mechanical juicer. All this is already a subject. The subject must support the theme through symbols and metaphors, which is yes indeed an artistic need, but also a way to make comprehensible the meaning of things without using words. I then chose the character of the machine, once useful to the community, but now rusty and inefficient, and the wrench, which in the hands of the kids symbolizes fixing things that don't work. The message I would ambitiously like the audience to take home is that the work of young citizens is a strong antidote to the corruption of a nation. A cartoon requires almost as much preparation and design work as the actual production. The first thing you draw are actually sketches, so you just have to make it clear how the style will look like, the visual rendering of what's to come. You are searching by images for the best possible shape for everything. This is called concept art. Nowadays, the limit that defines what you can see in a film is only given by the imagination of those who conceived its visual content. To build an imaginary world, it's always a good idea to use images of real locations, so I couldn't help but take inspiration from the landscape of the island where I was born, Sicily, with some reference to the area around Mount Etna and the city of Catania. For a live-action film, you make an audition to recruit actors, also according to their physical traits. In a similar way, in a cartoon, you proceed with the study of the possible variations of designs of the characters up to the best synthesis of form and recitative function. Alfred Hitchcock said that he invited Walt Disney the ability to always have the best actors, because if he didn't like one, he could tear him up. One thing that I learned is that the role of a character must be declared by its shape. So my evil character became all edgy, made of triangles like the stalactites in Escape, because the triangle at an unconscious level suggests danger. On the other side, for the two kids, everything is round. The circle for humans is a soft shape, it's reassuring, it's motherly, it's in short good. These concepts extend beyond the design and are also applied to the animation. So I made sure that the user will move with snappy mechanical movements, as will the crab. The movements of the kids instead always draw curved lines. One fascinating aspect of the movies has always been the ability to give life to monsters. Monster in a classical way, from monstrum, which is a thing never seen before, a creature never seen before. I drew a picture of a juicer and then modeled its appearance over a species of crab that lives here where I come from. That, for a weird coincidence, in Sicilian is called sea orange. My design has only one eye. It's a cyclop, like the mythological figure who, according to Homer's Odyssey, lived in a cave at the foot of Mount Etna. The villain in the story is mechanical, to stress the fact that it's not human. In fact, monsters, aliens, robots are all empathically distant from the viewer, so when the protagonist defeats the antagonist, it's not really a killing, it's rather a transformation, and this keeps the hero on the just side. The choice to make an animated film instead of a live-action film must be justified, for example with abstraction. In cartoons, you must use a cinematic language that will be impossible to achieve with common optical instruments. I wanted a film with powerful cinematography, snappy camera movements, and an aggressive editing, and this was possible thanks to the storyboard. The storyboard is the visual planning of what should be shown on the screen and for how long. You are placed in front of all the problems to solve them in advance, avoiding all the unnecessary work on shots that will be later discarded. It's the first translation into images of the story that until the moment was only a mental sequence. When drawing a storyboard, it's important to focus on drawing the actions. This is because the actor is a doer. He is who puts things into actions. Even the color changes throughout the story have to be planned by painting a color scheme to match the emotional evolution of the narrative. In some shots, such as those in the cave, I boosted up the contrast between the warm colors of the kids and the cold of the background, just to maximize the sense of conflict. The juicer has been modeled in 3D and connected to a rig, which is a structure of bones and control elements, just like an elaborate digital marionette. There is of course an obvious sense of irony in the staging of the ideological clash between traditional 2D animation and 3D animation. By using these digital tools and tricks, I don't really think I'm being disloyal to the traditional method. I think that tradition is something that needs contamination and influences to stay alive. The whole animation of the two kids has been designed by using pencil and paper, which is still a very, very reliable way to control the construction of the volumes and the underlying structure of a character. On paper, I've also placed the characters on the background, checking that the perspective was correct. Drawings on paper define the key poses, those drawings that define a movement or a change in direction and help measure the time on the screen. Using an automatic scanner, I digitized the image sequences, and from this point onwards, all the in-betweens were drawn on the computer, using an old but efficient tablet PC and its stylus sensitive to pressure. To be sure that you're drawing clear and distinct actions, I had to film myself while acting out the parts of my characters. The most time-consuming process is the combination of tie-down, when all the drawings are redrawn to even out the volumes, and cleanup, the final drawing, the only one visible to the audience, which defines the details and serves as an outline for the color fill. Complementary to character animation is special effects animation. I added fluttering belts, splashes of water and orange juice, puffs, plus some visual tricks, for example to suggest a fast movement. In Oranguerrilla you can see many camera movements, lighting effects, shadows, particle effects like dust and splashing water, and this has been possible thanks to a complex compositing made with Blender, a 3D image generation software that can actually handle very well a project like this. All drawn elements were imported in a 3-dimensional space as planes perpendicular to the virtual camera. I could check that the shadows were perspectively correct, and I was able to instruct the software to automatically simulate shadows with a custom sequence of operations onto the elements. I also used Blender to edit all the shots together and output the final mix. Blender, however, was not ready to perform many of the functions that are needed, but since it's free and open source software, and I can handle this type of programming a bit, I added the functionalities that I found were missing, making Blender more suitable for video editing. I then obviously made public and documented my code using a tool made available to developers. The band of some friends from my hometown, the Acatones, composed and recorded the music track for me. I first had them to listen to a mix of other soundtracks that I mixed, just as a reference. Francesco then wrote a draft of the track, and together we fine-tuned it around the changes of emotion in the story. I'm bound to this project in a special way because I feel I applied a rule that's true for many other artists, which is tell stories that only you could write. As an author, I chose animation as my ideal expressing medium because it brings together all the things I know I've learned, all my passions. But I don't like to think of a career in the animation industry as a dream. It's a very concrete process. You have to study a lot. There's a lot to learn. And it's not full of magic as a lot of people think. However, sometimes if you get stuck looking at a loop of a scene you just made, somehow you can believe that those characters can have a life on their own somehow.